someone I have mad respect for. I'm so glad we could get him on short notice. When it comes to politics, he is steeped in it. When it comes to California politics, he lives and breathes it. And it'll be so great to get his takes on a lot of what's happening today. He is a journalist, anchor, and a friend of the show, Elex Michaelson. Good to see you, sir.
Hey, Mark. Good to see you.
Yeah. So I was kind of talking some Epstein stuff, and we can get back to that in a moment, because I was saying there's a component of everything right now when I watch the Trump stuff that is associated with distraction on some level, but it's also agenda driven. So I'll give him that. This takeover of Washington, D.C., I can give you a dark narrative that I'll do maybe in a couple of minutes, but give me your initial take on it.
Well, it's one of those things that, to me, it feels like Democrats for so many years have been saying it's the end of democracy, it's the end of democracy, it's the end of democracy, that when you actually get to something that kind of feels like the end of democracy, maybe people aren't listening. See, to me, this is like one of those things. I mean, it certainly has the feeling of the sort of pathway in the road towards dictatorship. The idea of the president taking over control of the military, taking over control of the police force, and creating basically a police state in the nation's capital. I mean, it's a very dramatic development that I think is getting underplayed because people are so exhausted from a bunch of hysteria and crying wolf over the years, maybe, that when the actual threat is coming, I think people maybe are too tired to fight it.
It's interesting, too, that the dictatorial instincts and authoritarian instincts of Trump were spoken of at length by so many people who served in his first administration. And still, we blew right past that, and he ends up now living out all of those instincts. Tony, there was a part of, well, we're going to do kind of a little bit of a needle drop on the conversation that Trump was having with everybody. And, he kind of does his weave thing where he just is talking about this and that. But the announcement this morning, and then you and I can comment on it. Go ahead, Tony.
Like we did on the southern border, I'm announcing a historic action to rescue our nation's capital from crime, bloodshed, bedlam, and squalor, and worse. This is Liberation Day in D.C., and we're going to take our capital back. We're taking it back under the authorities vested in me as the President of the United States. I'm officially invoking Section 740 of the District of Columbia Home Rule Act. You know what that is? And placing the D.C. Metropolitan Police Department under direct federal control, and you'll be meeting the people that will be directly involved with that. Very good people, but they're tough, and they know what's happening. They've done it before. In addition, I'm deploying the National Guard to help reestablish law, order, and public safety in Washington, D.C., and they're going to be allowed to do their job properly. And you people are victims of it, too. You're reporters.
Okay. And now he's just going, you know how bad it is, everybody. By the way, Kim was quick to point out this morning that the mayor of Washington, D.C. and police chief of Washington, D.C. were not told that this is going to happen. I mean, it's an extraordinary thing. There's no coordination.
Well, we know what that's like here, right?
Yeah, right,
We federalized
exactly.
the National Guard and did not talk to Governor Newsom or Mayor Bass about that, and we know how frustrated they were. And so, and Mayor Bass and Governor Newsom both told me that they thought that was a trial run. It was a bit of an experiment of what he would do around the country. And now we're seeing that. And DC may be a trial run for what he would do in other places. And by the way, there are people that are going to watch this that are going to say, good.
Sure.
I'm sure there's plenty of people in Los Angeles that would love for somebody to come into Skid Row and say, enough of this, enough. We're not, or go down to that homeless encampment and say, we're not doing this anymore. So, this is not, I know a lot of people view this as horrible, but there are people, there's a reason why strong men work through history.
Yes, that's exactly right.
There's, and we're in a moment in our history where our bureaucracy has gotten so bloated, so inefficient, and so corrupt that there is a hunger for somebody to cut through that and just get something done. And I think a lot of people don't feel like the institutional norms have really worked for them. So they don't really care. If this means that I get to go on a walk in DC and all of a sudden that green space doesn't have a homeless person sleeping in it, and maybe I feel more protected walking, there's some people who are going to like it. And then there's other people that are going to feel like they're being targeted in a police state, that they're not welcome in their own hometown. And but we got to understand that this cuts both ways.
Yeah, and there are parts of Washington that are scary, dangerous, and the overall vibe in Washington isn't one of scary, dangerous. In fact, the crime numbers, as you know, violent crime numbers by now have been quoted so many times, they're down. But as
Historic
Trump quoted,
lows.
yeah, exactly, historic lows, 30-year lows. But I think you're so sharp to point to other cities, because I do see this as a road test. I mean, he came in here to Los Angeles with this fiction that the city was completely out of control, that these protesters had taken over, and we know that that just wasn't the case. It's been stated over and over, and you could see most of the city
It was
is
a
fine.
small area, but not the
Right.
whole city. Yeah.
And
And then what
yeah.
the National Guard did, I mean, the question is, will any of this actually work, or is it just about optics, right? I mean, because when the National Guard came in here to our protest, they weren't really engaging with protests. They protected a couple buildings. That wasn't really the key. The key was the LAPD finally getting tough and enacting a curfew and finally implementing the law. I mean, that's what it was. It wasn't the National Guard. So will this make a difference, or will this just be pretty pictures for the evening news? We'll see.
Tony, play the other cut. I think there's a cut further down where he actually mentions, we may have to do this in other cities. Go ahead. Let's see how this.
And they know what's happening. They've done it before. In addition, I'm deploying the National Guard to help reestablish law, order, and public safety in Washington, D.C., and they're going to be allowed to do their job properly. And you people are victims of it, too. You're reporters, and I understand a lot of you tend to be on the liberal side, but you don't want to get mugged and raped and shot and killed. And you all know people and friends of yours that happened. And so you can be anything you want, but you want to have safety in the streets. You want to be able to leave your apartment or your house where you live and feel safe and go into a store to buy a newspaper or buy something. And you don't have that now. The murder rate in Washington today is higher than that of Bogota, Colombia, Mexico City, some of the places that you hear about as being the worst places on earth, much higher. This is much higher. The number of car thefts has doubled over the past 5 years, and the number of...
Further down, he actually references that we may have to, he mentions other cities, like we might have to do this in other cities. He clearly, has a jihad against democratic cities and states. Mm-hmm. And also, I think he sees Washington, D.C. kind of as his hotel lobby. I don't know. I always think
he has a hotel lobby.
Yeah, Trump's got as his second hotel lobby. Or I see him just as a real estate guy who doesn't really know much, who's just in there, and he wants to make everything, a Trump hotel. And on some level, I think, I don't know. That's the way I see it, sort of as a jetliner view.
Well, I see it as that he has never really demonstrated any true compassion for poor people. He thinks that they're annoying and in the way, right? I mean, I think the way he views life is the strongest are the ones who should survive. If you're rich, you should be able to do a lot of what you want. And for everybody else is either lazy or inefficient or ineffective and kind of a waste of time and kind of and unsightly. Like it's gross. It makes the property look bad. It's not a good thing. So get that out. Like, I don't think he cares where the homeless go. I just think he cares that they're not in his view. Right? I don't think he really cares if people are dropped off of Medicaid, because he's never been on Medicaid and most of his friends aren't on Medicaid. That's not what he cares about. He believes that if you aren't able to lift yourself up, that you're weak and you're kind of a waste of time. And so that's, I think, fundamentally the way that he views the world. And so that's kind of that has not always been the way. That's not the way that most Democrats view the world. It's just not. And so fundamentally, I think a lot of Democrats view government as a way to help lift up poor people and to try to equalize society. And I think that Donald Trump doesn't fundamentally see the world that way. And that's evidenced here.
I'm reminded of the way he said, I don't want those veterans in wheelchairs and those who've been maimed in war, et cetera, to be in the front. Let's put them somewhere where the cameras can't see them.
Right.
Yeah.
So he views the world like he is producing a TV show or a beauty pageant. I mean, the guy owned beauty pageants, right? And so like if you're producing a TV show, certainly from a certain era, like the people that you put in the front row of the audience are usually famous or hot people. Right? Like if you go to these like audience casting sections for like Dancing with the Stars, when they literally will put the pretty people up closer. That's what they do for all these sorority videos that are going out. You know, they'll put the heavier girls in the back, or maybe they're not in the video. And like that's the way that he views the world. So he you know, the pictures that he put out on his True Social were pictures from the presidential motorcade of homeless encampments that they saw as he was driving. That was in his view, and he doesn't like that. Now, there are some people that think, well, maybe there's a benefit to that. Like I wondered, like if Rick Caruso would have become the mayor of Los Angeles, would he have had a similar approach? But maybe it wouldn't have been as controversial. Would Rick Caruso have cleaned up LA City Hall? Would he have cleaned up Hollywood and Highland? Would he have cleaned up the most visible, most photographed, you know, most in your face areas, and maybe throw them in some other places that people don't go to as much? Because from an optics perspective, you want those areas to look good. We didn't get to see what that would look like, but I think there's a certain perception and a certain way of thinking that would lead somebody to do that. And by the way, some people like that. That's not necessarily unpopular.
Right. And I think that if you go back to New York City and Giuliani cleaning up Times Square, I mean, you can go to other major cities that had issues with a bad look, with crime, with just something that is unsightly and scares tourists away. That was a big deal in New York City. I mean, again, controversial, but you know, you go to Times Square now and it's like Disneyland, you know, so it's what you're saying, I mean, does cut. And it's interesting to me when you talk about perception, you use the word perception. I just think so much of what Donald Trump is doing is a media play. Even today, didn't he bring Pam Bondi out also, Tony? Play a little bit of the Bondi stuff, because she's there just obviously as part of the show to say, we're not taking any crap, we're moving in heavy. It's a real masculine almost flex that they're always doing. Here's a little bit of that from this morning.
Talking about here.
Sure, President.
This is Pam Bondi.
Let me be crystal clear. Crime in D.C. is ending and ending today. We are going to use every power we have to fight criminals here. President, thank you for caring about our capital. Families come here every summer. Our museums are free. We have the National Zoo. We have the National Gallery. D.C. should be a place where everyone can come and feel safe. Behind me and to my side, we have some of the best career law enforcement and prosecutors in the country who are ready to take this on. As the president said, Terry Cole is going to be supervising the Metro Police Department. Gadi Serralta, our U.S. Marshal, is going to be supervising command and control, the entire operation. Our Deputy Attorney General, Todd Blanche, and I will be working with them closely, along with our great FBI Director, Kash Patel. Kash is going to talk to you in a minute about what we did in Virginia recently with Governor Youngkin. Many of you covered that, and it was tremendously successful. Not only that, our secret weapon here in D.C. is U.S. Attorney Jeanine Pirro, one of the toughest prosecutors and a former judge. And she is going to be talking about juvenile crime, how it's out of control here, and what she's going to do to fight back.
Okay, stop right there, Tony. You know, it's funny, and maybe I'll play a little Jeanine Pirro for you, Alex. she actually, when she got on, was sort of saying, I can't really do much about juvenile crime. She was saying, I can handle the adults because they don't get to me, to my courtroom, until they're adults. But you see what I mean about the perception, the strength, the sternness and the intensity with which Bondi speaks. I feel as though that's all, everybody gets it. Everybody knows that's the way they have to sing from the hymnal.
And I mean, we talked about the concept of casting it like a TV show. Look at who's up there. I mean, you've got Pete Hegseth, the former Fox and Friends host. You've got Jeanine Pirro, the former host of The Five. You've got Pam Bondi, who was on Fox News Channel all the time. Frankly, with respect to her, looks like she could be anchoring any Fox News show, just sort of as that perception. You got Kash Patel, who was huge in the right-wing podcast space for years as somebody that was seen as a go-to in that world. And these are all characters that are part of the Trump show. They're all experienced TV performers who are very good at creating a perception. And when he did it, I gave him credit. I mean, I think that Biden made a mistake by appointing a bunch of bureaucratic people who were not particularly good on TV and not comfortable communicating his message. And then he was confused why nobody understood his message when even he didn't go out and do it. So I'm not necessarily saying that as a criticism, but it is sort of this giant sort of show. And they're all players that are used to putting on shows. It's a different way of doing government.
Politics is messaging. You have to message your policies. You have to message your platform. And I was saying it for years, and I agreed with you here, even unaware that you were making the same point. I felt as though the Biden victories are trees falling in the forest with nobody around, because you can't seem to get them articulated by anyone who has the kind of dynamic and the kind of charisma and the kind of intensity that is required to really communicate effectively serious victories, hard-won, hard-fought victories. Play me a little bit of Jeanine Pirro coming to the platform, and then I want to move on. But I want to ask you about Russia.
Do you want me to answer it? Here's the problem. Assuming that they're 17 years, older than 17 years old, I can get the case.
Yeah.
If they're under 18 years of age, I can only get the case if it's murder, rob one, rape, or even if they shoot a gun but don't kill you, I can't get it. So the law has to be changed. As the president said, cashless bail. That has to be changed. All right, then even assuming I get the case, I get jurisdiction, I get a conviction, the DC Council has given the judges the ability to give probation on shootings. And so then it's up to them. All of these things, the Youth Rehabilitation Incarceration Reduction Act, and now they want to seal records. So if we work hard, we get a conviction, they want to wipe it out. So that needs all to be changed. Okay.
All right, so there was a Jeanine Pirro as a cameo. As you say, it's all part of the show. They're just such familiar figures. They don't.
Well, at least she gave kind of a nuanced answer there.
she really. She sounds like she knows her stuff. I mean, yeah. I don't know. You catch her in the morning is what I always say before happy hour. Yeah. So that's the situation in Washington. I fear what might happen in other major cities like Los Angeles. We saw sort of a road test of it in a way. And here's the darker narrative I'll just share with you. It's the Curtis Yarvin kind of view of he's the kind of the tech philosopher that so many of these billionaire boys club of tech bros subscribe to, which is that America should be run by a CEO, these cities should be run by CEOs, that these politicians and public servants, they don't know what they're doing, and the inefficiencies that are built into government are getting in the way of the people being served. And also, what is it with the people? We're not always about serving the people. We can't always serve all the people. That's very much a Curtis Yarvin thing. And it is, again, in this darker narrative, suggested that, you give that kind of strategy a chance to live running the nation's capital, where you actually can install it, essentially, and bypass a lot of the existing restrictions.
Right. And I think there's a lot of people that feel that way, but that goes back to what we were talking about, this idea of what is government? What is the purpose of government? is government's purpose to try to lift everybody up and sort of help as an equalizer for society? Or is government's purpose to do the least possible and basically reward the winners? And those are different worldviews. And you're seeing, Trump is like just going for it, right? I mean, he's like, and all of this goes to get together. Like what he's doing with redistricting in Texas, like goes with this. It's this idea of, fuck the system. Sorry. The system's bullshit. Who gives a shit about that? Like, I'm going to claim and grab as much power as I possibly can. I will ask for forgiveness, not permission, and you stop me. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, look at what happened last week with the ICE situation and the immigration raids in Southern California. The Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals rules that they can't do indiscriminate raids, especially at a Home Depot. 2 days later, they do one in a Home Depot and then put out a video using Karen Bass's words and post a video of the head of the Border Patrol literally laughing at her, interspicing stuff as they have shots of them running after people. I mean, it is a giant middle finger. It is basically saying, make me. And our system is set up, especially our court system, is set up on a premise of trust. They have no real mechanism. The court doesn't have an army, right? It's all based off of, we trust this system and we all bought into this system. But if all of a sudden people stop buying into the system, then we do have a real constitutional crisis.
Yeah. I mean, the system is people. And either if nobody buys in, as you say, real issues. I know our time is short, but I want to get with you on a quick word about Russia, and then I want to move to Epstein, and then I'll let you go. And it's amazing because even as I say this just as an aside, we talk about the ICE and immigration raids. I feel like we should spend more time on that. It's and maybe I'll just spend a beat on it now. It to me is an absolute abomination. I can't even begin to tell you that this is, in my view, it's lawless and it takes America down a very dark road. And it's being done so recklessly. Every car wash, every Home Depot, all of these high school graduations, they're arresting people who are here legally oftentimes, and oftentimes they're not, but they're suggesting by their mere presence, aren't they, Elex, that there's no warrant presented, there's no actual suspect here. You really are just arresting people based on skin color and where you think they likely will be doing business.
And once again, there are some people who view that as a positive, who say, look, the system has been out of control. Joe Biden let millions of people come into this country. There was no regulation. It's, a lot of these people, some are working, some are taking our tax dollars and good. And they see it as an example of now, I don't think that's the majority opinion in Southern California. It's certainly, but he wasn't going to win Southern California anyways. But this messaging, he's using Southern California as a way to send a message to the rest of the country. And there's a reason why the immigration folks are taking cameras with them for many of these raids and posting videos of them. They think these images work for them. Yeah.
I think the images do work. It's a long process, and they're making so many mistakes. Really, they're arresting and detaining so many American citizens.
What they really want, I think, from this is for people to self-deport, right? They want people to be scared of these images, scared that it's going to happen to them. They're running those ads about the border app where you can, potentially come back later on. I mean, the easiest thing for them is for people to leave on their own because they think this is going to happen to them. And so I think that's a big part of what this is too.
I want to pivot to Russia and this meeting over Ukraine and Russia. They've been in this deadlock in terms of negotiations for some time. I was saying before that it strikes me that Vladimir Putin on some level has already won by being invited to a meeting, A, that Zelensky isn't invited to yet, and B, that's on American soil. I mean, it's, the legitimacy of Putin is immediately established.
Yeah, but not a huge surprise given who the American president is. He certainly had a long history of giving Vladimir Putin legitimacy. Although Donald Trump this morning seemed to think it was on Russian soil, not realizing that Alaska apparently is part of the United States.
Yeah, yeah. Well, sometimes the word gets out slowly. The Tony, will you play for Elex? I thought there was a bit from, I think it was a CNN commentator on the. I'm just spacing his name. He's been involved in a lot of these kinds of foreign negotiations. Either that or even. Yeah, there it is. Go ahead. This is just give a listen, because I think this kind of takes. There's a lot of nuance to any kind of negotiation like this. Of course, nuance is not something that Trump does very well, and I think you realize what's lost in this negotiation thus far. Go ahead, Tony.
And peace ought to be something we do with Ukraine, not to Ukraine. Joe, I've negotiated, for the United States in lots of settings, and I would simply say, whenever you're trying to bring about peace, you've really got two approaches with the antagonist. One is to incentivize them. The other is to put pressure on them. Russia and Putin are the aggressor. And I would say the way to get them to the table at this point is not to incentivize them. They can't and should not be rewarded for aggression, for taking territory by force. That violates the most basic of all rules of how the world ought to operate. And the United States should be supporting Ukraine. It's almost that simple. There ought to be sanctions on Russia, and there ought to be military and intelligence support for Ukraine. And that ought to bring Putin to the table, however reluctantly. We ought to get a clean ceasefire without prejudice to Russian claims or Ukraine's claims down the road. Do this in phases. But I don't understand why the United States would take what we would call in other situations final status issues about territory, which also involves populations, put them on the table now, much less in a one-sided way to reward the aggressor. This really seems to me to be an unfortunate, if it turns out to be the case, or truly unfortunate, misguided approach, which won't work. The Ukrainians will reject it, the Europeans will. So I don't understand what this one-sided push is all about, because it won't work, and more important, it won't last.
There you go. I thought that was a good take, and I would just add to this, if you give Russia anything, Elex, if you give them anything, it rewards their aggression,
Right, and that was Richard Haas, by the way, who was speaking there. Right, but I guess I don't know what the counter argument would be how do you end this thing? And do they need something to end this thing, or is there actual interest on any of these sides to actually end this thing?
You'd need, not to interrupt, but you'd need a real security guarantee from the NATO countries and from America. But again, we gave them a security guarantee when they denuked in the 90s, and then we didn't show up when they needed us.
Right, and so I think there's a lot of lack of trust in that region on all sides, which makes this whole thing so complicated. Of course, the president said that he would solve it on his first day in office, and we're in August, and we haven't had it solved yet.
Well, he was worried about other stuff, Elex, to be fair. All right. He'll get to it. Anyway, that happens Friday. Now, finally, Epstein. There's clearly a cover-up, in my view, and I think in anyone looking at it, you can see that they are finding different ways to try to mollify the public, to satisfy this insatiable call and desire for these files to be released, for the transparency promise to actually show up, and they don't want the files released, obviously. The Epstein victim, do you have I think this is, first of all, this is Pam Bondi. Yeah, this is Pam Bondi prior to becoming Attorney General, talking about, this is again in the ramp up to the election, talking about how the Epstein files should be released.
And if people in that report are still fighting to keep their names private, Sean, they have no legal basis to do so unless they're a child, a victim, or a cooperating defendant by some chance against some potential case against Ghislaine Maxwell. And I think Mark Garagos, as a great criminal defense attorney, will back that up as well.
Yeah, so no one should be against releasing it. And then speaking of the victims, here is an Epstein victim speaking. And of course, the Epstein victims who are able to speak want the files released? This is Annie
I
Farmer.
think that, one thing I think it's important people understand is that this chaotic process that's been unfolding has a real cost for survivors. A central part of trauma is a feeling of a lack of control, and that has certainly been triggered here, and I think has a lot of us feeling, very uneasy, really exhausted by this process. And we are learning things just like everybody else, mostly, through the news, through text from friends. We have not been given any kind of a heads up about things that are happening that are directly related to us. These meetings, even this prison transfer was something I expected we would learn about prior to learning about it in the news, and unfortunately that's not how it is unfolded.
That's typically the way they do it, Alex, as you know. They talk to the victims' families before they would ever make a deal for a transfer to another prison.
Yeah, I mean, it does not seem like in any step of this the victims' families have been the focus. The focus has clearly been protecting powerful people. And the irony of this whole situation was the whole concept was that we're going to release the information and release the conspiracy, and powerful people will be held accountable. The only thing that could end up happening right now that looks most likely is that Ghislaine Maxwell could be released.
It's an
the perpetrator of the whole thing,
Yeah.
the one who was the biggest, who started the whole thing. It could end up with nobody else being charged, nobody else even being identified, and the woman who is at the heart of the whole thing, who has already been criminally convicted, potentially getting out as a way to protect those people in power, which would be the ultimate slap in the face to those victims.
She procured and then sexually assaulted so many of these women. Last thing is Michael Wolff. Play this for Alex, if you would, please, Tony.
I think that he understood that Jeffrey Epstein might well have been a key threat.
This is
When Steve Bannon met.
Yeah, this is, sorry, thanks for stopping for a second. I think this is very important. They understood, Team Trump, that Epstein actually could be immensely damaging to Trump's chances of getting into the presidency again. And so that's why, into winning the election. And so that's why this conversation that Wolff is about to relate actually went down. Go ahead, Tony.
Have been a key threat. When Steve Bannon met Jeffrey Epstein in the fall of 2018, the first thing he said, and I was standing there, so I heard this, and the first thing, he put out his hand, they shook hands, and Bannon said, "You were the only person I was afraid of during the 2016 campaign."
Wow.
And, and once Epstein had would sometimes take out these pictures he had about Donald Trump and with Donald Trump with the girls who came to Epstein's house. I mean, I've described these in various situations. And at one point, when Trump was president, I tried to encourage Epstein to release these pictures. And he said at that time, "I may be a pervert, but I am not crazy." And when he was arrested, that would be in July 2019.
Oh, was that a spot?
I'm going to pay for YouTube Premium.
Yeah, I know. I have YouTube Premium. Tony does. Back to it.
Part of the view here was that, and this is actually more complicated, and I play a part here because Epstein did talk to me about Trump, and I recounted some of that conversation, and specifically about their real estate dispute, and Epstein's belief that it was Trump who first went to the Palm Beach police about the activities at Epstein's house. And that book came out in a book called Siege, and it came out in in June of 2019.
That's good, Tony. I wanted to you to hear the Michael Wolff reference to the Bannon conversation, because it really spoke to the power of the Epstein information to derail the Trump presidency. You're the only thing I was really worried about. You know, it's wow.
Well, they were also worried about Stormy Daniels.
They glided past Stormy Daniels after the payoff. They didn't need to pay her off, as it turns
enough
out.
to give her some money.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, they had the Access Hollywood tape. I mean, they had a lot of things in that campaign. And isn't it amazing to think about, our Twilight Zone history experiment? If, maybe James Comey doesn't release that letter and Hillary Clinton wins the presidency, Donald Trump is sort of confined to history as kind of a joke, right? Yeah. None of this stuff happens at all. But
I played that game with if Al Gore had actually been given the presidency that he won, and we wouldn't have had Iraq, we would have had a real environmental president. We would have been on the forefront of green energy and real alternative energy, and just would live in a much cleaner country, clearly over the coming decades. So I played that same game. Yeah, but you're right. And when it comes to Trump, we were a hair away, a breath away, really, from Hillary Clinton. And then all of this just gets, you're right.
Who started the day at the 90% favorite on election day. And then you think about how different history has come because of this. And in some ways, there's an argument that Trump would have been less powerful if he would have won re-election in 2020. That this version, this 4-year break, which allowed him to lick his wounds, which allowed him to get loyalists installed around the country, which allowed him to rethink an agenda, which allowed him to come in, guns blazing, has actually made him more powerful, and probably the most powerful president of our lifetime.
Agreed. I know you were given the key to the city of Los Angeles. So there was a proclamation. Tony, I wonder if you could, I was just about to send you a message. I wonder if you can hustle it. If not, I'll just tell everybody on The Issue Is, which is your political show. So many great conversations with so many thought leaders and politicians. And Mayor Bass comes on, and she's got this proclamation for you. And she, it was really a wonderful moment. So congratulations on that.
Thank you very much. So for people that don't know what we're talking about, I didn't get the key to the city. That would be
you didn't.
I had a massive proclamation though. That's like bigger than my body. No, I made the announcement recently that I'm actually leaving Fox 11, a station both of us have a lot of good memories at, and leaving The Issue Is, which was really hard for me because that's been my baby and I love it, and embarking on a new journey that I'll be able to talk about in the somewhat near future. Okay, do you want to play this?
Is it play? No, just a still. He's going to show us.
Okay.
Yeah. There you see. For those watching, you can see it, and for those listening, Alex smiles as Mayor Bass gives him this, as he says, this is an immense proclamation, framed proclamation.
Yeah. So
go ahead. Sorry.
So this is my last week, which is really kind of surprisingly emotional and quite something. And so next on Friday night is going to be our last episode of The Issue Is. And so I hope people will check it out. It's going to be a chance to look back and to hear from a lot of those thought leaders. A lot of people are sending in videos and messages, and we're going to honor our behind the scenes crew. And it's going to be a really, really special half hour for me. So I hope people will check it out.
Well, I'm going to say something that is absolutely true in our industry, which is the news business, and I'm a refugee from it too, excuse me. And that is, when they let you hang out for a couple more weeks or whatever it is, and then you actually get a chance to say goodbye on the air, that means they like you. They really, because generally what it is that was your last show. We appreciate all your box everything up and hit the bricks. They were very nice to me too. Yeah, they let me also take that farewell, which is really quite lovely. But here you are getting it. I just thought it was a really cool moment. And the last thing I'll say is, You know, I remember you when you were a reporter at KABC in Los Angeles, Channel 7, and you left and you said, I'm leaving to do something really exciting. And I thought, that's what people always say, I'm leaving to do something really exciting. And then you did not only do something really exciting, in my view, you reinvented the anchor position as you did the Issue Is. I mean, you became sort of the first call, last call for so many when it came to politics in California and then politics generally. So, you know, I'm really excited for your next chapter because I know you really are going to pay off. I mean, it's just terrific to see what you've done, man.
Thank you very much. I don't know if you remember me when I was an intern at Fox 11.
I do not.
Yeah. I was 17 years old, and I worked mostly on the morning show, so I didn't get to see you very much. But there were a few days where I hung out a little bit later, and I saw you. Yeah, so I've been at this for a while now, it was, look, I loved my job at Channel 7 and loved the people there, and likewise, that was something exciting that was different and gave me a chance to grow. And I think this next thing is exciting and different, will give me a chance to grow, but also a chance to do a lot of what I love. And I look forward to the moment when I can talk about it with you. I just want to say thank you for being so supportive of me and our show and everything, and sort of lifting us up over the years as well.
Of course, of course. Well, we're excited to maybe tap you again. Love your takes on things. So thanks for being here today, Elex.
Thanks, Mark.
Appreciate it. Elex Michaelson, everybody.
Everybody.
Hi, it's Mark, and I thought that was great. Hit the notification bell. You'll know whenever there's a new video being dropped, and please subscribe to our channel to help us save the universe.